It's the era of Pedro Pascal at the minute, with a new trailer for season 3 of The Mandalorian and the premiere of HBO's The Last of Us, which has been pretty well received, it has to be said, quite unlike most video game adaptations, some of which we will be talking about in today's Let's Talk. And there's plenty for us to get excited about in a new trailer for Scream 6, as well as an announcement that I think has made us happy about COBRA KAI Season 6 upcoming as well. All that, plenty more on today's show. Welcome to the madness! Hello everyone, welcome back to Monday Madness with Morgan. That's not Morgan, that's the machine. I'm Morgan, that's the machine. Hello, Morgan and the machine. Hello, the machine.
Hello. Hello, the Morgan.
I got my pointed fingers confused then.
That's okay.
Yeah. People listening weren't quite aware that my must have thought my mind had just broken temporarily, but that's nothing new either, is it really? For Monday Madness, for any show
I mean,
we have.
madness is in the title. It is expected.
It is.
So.
It is. It does seem like we've got an awful lot of exciting things to talk about today, though.
Yes, yeah. So let's just jump into it. Ask the question.
Guess. Well, I guess so. I mean, if we want to jump straight into it, very quick, very on it. We've got to be on it today, I suppose. But I haven't asked how are we, how are you, how are we, how am I? Yeah, which is also what I usually like to say. I'm okay. You okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
Good. I hope we're all okay and are excited about today's show, are excited about things we're talking about today. I will ask the question now. So, Jeannine.
We have some really fun things up today, Morgan. So you did talk about this moment for Pedro Pascal happening right now. So we did get a Mandalorian trailer, which looks very, very exciting. I think, it's probably going to force some people to have to watch those few episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, which I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. So
I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett too. There was there only like 6 episodes? It wasn't that long,
it was a very
was it?
short series. I think it was definitely a good kind of redemption for this character who was kind of had this cool essence, but then the way they kind of ended his story in the original films kind of took away some of that coolness factor. So to kind of come back and give him more story and really flesh him out, I think, for people who haven't read like deeper lore or books or things like that.
And for me as well, certainly. I mean, I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett, even though it did turn into kind of Mandalorian season 2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Part way through, but kind of brought it all back round. It's all in this same, because Boba Fett was, of course, reintroduced in season 2 of The Mandalorian. It's all works as this same world. It all works as this little snippet of the Star Wars universe that kind of all connect somewhat with each other. I've got a feeling the Rosario Dawson Ahsoka Tano show will be quite similar.
Yeah, because she was heavily kind of featured in both of those stories.
She
so
was.
I like the interconnectivity of these stories because they're all the similar timeline. So I mean, I did not.
It will definitely. It will mean people have to go and watch the Book of Boba Fett really if they want most of the context as to where Grogu is on his Force using story and
how he's back with Mando and all of that.
Yes.
So yes, I like this idea of kind of going to Mandalore and finding more Mandalorians and him trying to find some kind of forgiveness for his discretions of taking his mask off and and all of those kinds of things. So I'm looking forward. We saw a bunch of different Mandalorians, so I'm excited to see like this team up or this kind of rivalry between different factions of Mandalorians potentially. That looks really interesting. I think we're gonna get some more. It looks like some Order 66 stuff, so we might actually get
Yeah,
a
there's
reveal of who actually got Grogu out. Um,
which would be interesting, I suppose, wouldn't it? Yes, I like the idea of thinking about it. It's not something I've actually thought about. I saw
yes,
lightsaber wielding in
yeah,
the season 3 trailer. I didn't actually realize it was coming out as soon as it is. I think it's March the 1st.
yeah.
So it's really, really soon. It's really, going to come at us quickly. I think the start of season 3. But it will be interesting to see how Grogu escaped Order 66, if that is what that little
Well, yeah,
snippet
because I
is,
mean, I
which
think
it does look like it.
yeah, and we got several kind of flashbacks that always kind of cut off before we got more detail in terms of what happened. So I think
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to tease us again. I think they're actually going to show what happened,
I'd
and
like that.
how he got out. But yeah, it looks really good. I think Grogu, like obviously, I think there's going to be a show of strength in his abilities. We see him kind of force pushing this big creature out of a cave and not falling
Yeah,
asleep. So potentially kind of learning to harness his powers without kind of tuckering himself out. We get a little clip of Carl Weathers in here, so I'm glad we get to see him again.
yes.
So yeah, I mean,
There'll be those odd supporting characters coming back for
coming back,
one
yeah.
little episode. I think the directors list that they've put out as well is also very, very similar people. I know Bryce Dallas Howard's doing another one. I think is it Fukunaga's doing another
Mm-hmm.
one.
I think Taika did some episodes in like the first season when he was that robot, that
Yeah,
droid. So yeah.
it's nice that they've got a real kind of core
Cool.
bunch of
Yes, of rotating
creatives
directors.
behind it,
Yes. Uh-huh.
and obviously the little supporting characters on screen themselves that don't seem to, they don't have massive amounts of screen time, but are always nice to
To
see
see.
kind of show up
Yeah.
again. Now that
Yes.
we're obviously multiple seasons deep into the world of The Mandalorian, I'm very excited for it. I
Yes.
really like
Same.
The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian has done a hell of a lot of good in terms of my own mindset towards Star Wars that was just
Yeah, it was
nullified
super
by the
toxic.
sequel trilogy,
Yes.
not because of the movies, but because
But
of the
because of the
discourse
discourse
around
and
the
how
movies.
just disgusting fans were being about everything. And just me as somebody who is not like the biggest Star Wars person who doesn't know a lot about the lore, these shows are very kind of, digestible for people like me who are interested in the world, but it's just so vast and there's so much to know that, if you're kind of a surface level fan, you're not going to get everything. But I love that these shows make that information tangible and it makes
Yeah,
sense and it's easy to kind of connect to familiar things that you may know about the franchise, whatever little that may be. So
yeah,
I love these shows for that, for really giving me as somebody who likes Star Wars, who enjoys it, but doesn't know that deep into it. Uh, a kind of in to really understand these characters, get to know them, and really enjoy them on a kind of more mainstream kind of level that's just understandable without having to uh know a lot of deeper things.
yeah.
And they also kind of give you context of deeper things that you may not know about and kind of educate you on those things so you can also understand the world in general. So
I've just had a thought. If that flashback we do see is Order 66 and Grogu's potential escape, Grogu's going to be very young. Like, very. I know he's young anyway. He's obviously a child of his species, still a young child at 50 years old, I think
yeah, something like
Grogu's
that.
supposed to be. So, this is set after Return of the Jedi. Is it like 10 years after Return of the 5 years after Return of the Jedi, The Mandalorian? Something ish like that. He's going to be like in his 20s, Grogu,
Yeah.
when Order 66 is happening. He's basically like not born in terms of his species lifespan.
Yeah,
So,
he's gonna be very, very young. So, yes, I hope we actually do get the full scene and not just a tease. Which I think they actually did several teases, so I think this is the time to actually show what
unless he's
happened.
actually, like Yoda's secret child, and it's really gonna annoy people. Imagine if that was the actual case. Imagine
Yes.
if that's actually what happens, and this is why he had to be smuggled out, because he's so important, because he's
Well,
got
I
the
mean,
same genetic DNA. I mean, that would kill people off, wouldn't it?
I
That
mean,
would,
we've already gotten some very stressful things with parentage and things
yeah,
like that.
would
But
it would
then,
annoy it would annoy so
so
many people.
yes, I think that would be a dangerous game to play. But who knows? So
Who knows? Who
yeah,
knows?
yes,
I'm excited for it. I know
me
that. Well,
too.
do
It
you know
looks
what
really
else I'm
good.
excited for, Janine?
What's that?
Is the fact that they've announced that Cobra Kai season 6 is the final season.
Yes,
Yes, and I do not celebrate because I hate Cobra Kai. I celebrate because I love Cobra Kai and have always feared it going on too long. And with a definitive end now, season 6, I enjoy that fact. It's going to make that season 6 feel very, very special. We got a little kind of flashy trailer that came with this announcement.
yeah, just kind of showing the
Nothing new
recaps
was
of everything.
shown,
Yeah, yeah,
but I'm just, it was news. It's big news because it's a big show. It's a ridiculously popular show, and it's reassured me in my
yes.
concern of Cobra Kai going on too long that I now do not need to be concerned about that. So I
Yeah,
needed to just bring that up.
I think they got everything out of this show that they needed to get. They had some great moments. I mean, even with season 5, like I think it was probably the weakest season. It just felt like, I know you haven't watched it yet, but I know it felt like there was definitely a stress to find more conflicts and keep it interesting. So while it did do that, it accomplished that goal of still being entertaining. It felt like this was the first season that felt like they were really having to try to make interesting conflicts. Like, it felt a little forced at moments that they were really trying to figure out how to
Yeah,
continue this story. Whereas like those first 4 seasons were so fluid and made sense, and character motivations, while kind of constantly bouncing back and forth, it still felt
yeah,
like it
very much
made
so.
yes, it still felt like it made sense. But this season was the first season that felt like, okay, we're trying to kind of create conflict here. We're trying to do something here. We're trying to make this continue the story in some way. Like it felt a little bit like they were really having to figure out how to make continue the story. So I think
And I
6
don't,
is
I don't,
definitely where, you can end your story. You've told all the story you could tell. So
yeah,
I
and
think
it
it's a
certainly,
perfect spot.
it won't feel like that in season 6 either. It won't feel like they're trying to create conflict because they'll be building to something that they know is the
Exactly.
end.
Exactly. 5 felt like,
So
okay, we have to kind of keep things open. We have to try to
yeah,
figure out some more interesting conflicts. We have to kind of figure out how to keep this going for more later down the line. Whereas now that you have an
they don't
endpoint,
need
you
to do
can
that.
yes. So I'm excited. I've loved this show. I loved that we kind of went into this with, you watching the Karate Kid films for the first time and then jumping into this series. So I'm really excited for you to see season 5 and kind of see how you feel about it. I think the ending of the season definitely ended on something really interesting. So that definitely built to some good conflict going into this season 6. I do
Yeah.
want to watch season 5 again because I feel like it deserves another watch. And like this series is really easy to binge. I've done a
Oh
couple
yeah,
binges of
God.
it, just kind of go breezing through the first 4 seasons to get ready for 5, and always have a great time every time I watch it. So
I remember when you will have to forgive me for not having watched season 5 yet. I must apologize for that, but I know when new seasons have come out that I have watched kind of in real time with everybody else, not in that catch up of the original kind of Morgan hasn't seen Karate Kid series that we did do. Um, I remember watching the entire series in literally like a day and a half. It's
yeah.
because of the binge model of it, I think has not hindered it because it's a very, very successful show. It's a show that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people love, and a lot of people continue to have conversations
Yeah.
about. But I think there's an awful lot to be said about the how the vast majority of television now in the last good few years has gone back to wanting to do weekly shows and wanting to have
Have that
longer
week to week build and
time
with the show.
of conversation, because
Yeah.
it really helps. Like the premiere HBO shows, one of which we're obviously going to talk about pretty soon,
Yeah.
is going to help that an awful lot, because it stays in the conversation, it stays in the mind of people,
Yeah, it builds
and it's
anticipation,
not forgotten about
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. And it stretches
Um,
out the time. Yeah, like people are talking about it. We have a lot of creators who are going to be who would be doing week to week kind of discussion. So you have weeks worth
yeah,
of people buzzing and talking about your content, your show. Yeah. So I
yeah.
think that's definitely a good model for kind of higher profile projects like this. But I don't think Netflix is going to change. So
Unfortunately, no, I don't think it is.
they
I
love
mean,
their binge model, I think so.
they do, and each kind of major streaming service has its own kind of unique thing. Like all the HBO shows are strictly very week to week. Like Disney Plus, it does pretty good week to week stuff. They don't
Uh-huh.
really put
Yeah,
out
try to do
much
a
on
binge thing.
binge.
Yeah.
Prime does it weird, where it'll do like the first 2 or 3 episodes and then
Yeah.
go week to week.
Yeah.
But even that seems to work for Prime.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but what I do know is that I'm excited for Cobra Kai season 6. I'm excited to watch season 5 as well when I actually finally get around to doing that. But I'm certainly excited to know
Yes.
that it will be the finale, the definitive
Yes.
finale.
Yes. And I think it's the right time for this. And the show was just so creative in coming out of these great movies and then turning it into this twist on a familiar story, and seeing these characters again, and just the love and care to really bring back things from the original movies, and keep to that continuity of the films. I think was just so fun and smart to kind of see those things. So I loved this show, and I think it's definitely the perfect time to just close things out. So
Yeah. One other little bit of news that I did want to bring up that I saw this past week was something that interested me, but that I don't think is particularly wise
or necessary.
um, or necessary, really. But it does kind of half interest me. I don't think there's any real way that you could do this without it either just feeling really uncomfortable for a lot of people, or coming across as very, very strange. And this is a little bit of an announcement that there's an in development Michael Jackson biopic,
Yeah,
just called Michael, directed by Antoine Fuqua.
and I think it's produced by the people who did Bohemian Rhapsody. I think that's
Yeah,
trying to be their claim to, like, oh yeah, we know how to do biopics type
this is
thing. But
legit,
this is this is a very, like, who first off, like, who would play Michael? Like, who?
Exactly.
Yes.
It's not exactly an easy thing to
Yes.
cast.
Who's going to play this person, do this makeup without it looking caricature, without looking like it's mocking or making fun of?
Without
Um,
looking
you
like
know,
you're just putting someone in either blackface or whiteface, and
yes.
it just looking really odd,
So
really
these nose
strange.
prosthetics that aren't gonna just look very much teasing and mocking. Who's not gonna do the voice, like,
Yeah, like a
in a very
real.
kind of teasing, well, it's gonna just feel very much like they're making fun of him, or cartoonish. Um, how are they gonna tell different aspects of the story in terms of, allegations, and
I've
what
heard
side are they gonna sit on with that? Like,
I've heard in this announcement that they want to, as any biopic really should. I mean, a lot of biopics are obviously quite biased, but as a lot of good ones do, they don't shy away from the negatives in someone's life. And I think it was, or this announcement was saying that this movie was going to get into how those allegations, affected him in at that particular time, and how he struggled with that for the rest of his life up until he did obviously die in again, just unusual and half shady circumstances.
Yeah.
He's a ridiculously difficult person to track a life of, because it's ridiculously all over the place in terms of, I mean, I will say it for what it is. I have always been a really big fan of Michael Jackson's music. I really do enjoy listening to his music. There is always going to be the thought of the allegations whenever you bring up him as a person. But then again, those allegations were only ever allegations.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that they were coming out after his passing and not before then,
Which is not to say that it's not true, but we simply do not know for sure.
Yeah, there's no real confirmation of anything. Yes, and I agreed. Like, I grew up listening to his music. I grew up celebrating the fact that we share a birthday. I would always go around and be like, I have the same birthday as Michael Jackson. And yeah, so a very complicated man. I think somebody who also put on this persona, and I don't know that the people maybe closest to him would want to really kind of expose a side of him that maybe he didn't want people to see.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good point.
with Lisa Marie's passing, I've seen like interviews of her resurfacing, really talking about how Michael is not this like meek kind of person that he put out there. That was a persona. He was very uh you know he had kind of like a potty mouth, and he would talk very differently to how he put, she was talking, she would, in this interview, I remember her talking about, I think maybe she was talking to like Diane Sawyer or something, and she was very much like, Michael is nothing like, he's very kind of confident. He's not this meek little person that he like portrays himself to be. He very much has a bit of like a trashy mouth, and like is very,
which is very unusual when you think about it, isn't it?
Yes. So, for her to kind of describe this completely different person, how many people got to see that side of him?
Yeah.
And would they show that in the film, or would they show the projected version of him?
I just think it's wise to not do this. It's
It
wise
seems
to
just too
steer
difficult.
clear.
There's too many
away.
question marks. I think, with someone like Whitney, there were definitely a lot of things that we saw, a lot of things that, you could fact check, right?
Yes. There's tough
But with
things
him,
there.
there's way too much about him that was too private to really get accurate, and anything else you do is going to feel very made up, or maybe making fun of him, or
it's almost
just inaccurate.
It's almost worth if we must do this movie, which again, as someone who is quite honestly a fan of his music and remains that, you almost think about this as, would it not be a wiser decision, if we're going to do this movie, to do it as one of those snippet biopics that's maybe just the early years?
Yeah, that is only kind of focusing on a specific time in his life.
So there's still trouble there, because there's all sorts of questions about even his parentage, isn't there? And there's questions about his growing up, and Joe Jackson, and starting the Jackson 5 and going off on his own. And if you chart kind of that, but that's obviously then steering away from what a lot of people find was
the height of him, the height of him, the most interesting parts of what people would think, so yeah, I just don't see how this would work. I don't see who they would cast who could do the dancing, who could, who could have the look, in terms of like, if they are doing different phases of his life. He changed very dramatically from how he looked. How are they going to do that makeup to make him not look very cartoonish and like something you would see in a scary movie sequel? So I'm very apprehensive about this.
Yes, basically, don't do it.
Yes, I don't think it's a good idea, but
I do not think it's a good idea at all. Jeannine, I don't know what you want to talk about first out of these two rather large What's Up topics that we do have left.
Let's get into The Last of Us.
Well, let's talk about this. Now, of course, these episodes, this show comes out on a Monday. It's called Monday Madness. The Last of Us airs on a Sunday. This is the
Yes.
exact same problem we had with House of the
House of the
Dragon
Dragon,
in the
yeah.
summer, where we couldn't actually talk about the latest episode because we have to record these obviously before the release of the latest episode.
Yeah.
Which is not very nice at all. But we can talk about the start of The Last of Us, the 80-minute long episode 1 of The Last of Us. Now, I would like to preface this by saying I have zero concept of The Last of Us. I know it was a post-apocalyptic zombie game,
kind of game. Yeah.
and it had someone called Joel in it and a girl, and they were fighting
Traveling.
zombies. That's about all I knew of The Last of Us.
Same. I had no really context outside of this guy and a young girl are traveling through this dystopian world where there are zombies trying to survive. That's basically the context of all I knew. So I did do some light research in terms of creators doing videos talking about all the things you need to know before going into this show and things like that.
Okay.
So I got to get a little bit of insight on certain characters that were going to appear in the show. I think one of the voice actresses who's one of the characters in the game is actually playing her character in the show. So I think that's kind of a cool element. Since the episode has come out, I've seen a lot of really cool side-by-sides in terms of scenes from the show very much being exactly taken from scenes from the game, as the game creator is the creator of this show, which I think is a really cool thing.
I've seen that too.
So it definitely, this first episode definitely gave me vibes of The Walking Dead. I know you haven't watched The Walking Dead, so hopefully we can do some type of Morgan hasn't seen TV on The Walking Dead in some point.
That's a hell of a lot of TV.
It is, but
84 seasons of 400 episodes.
I mean, I've been rewatching the show myself of The Walking Dead, but I would love to kind of have you watch it, at some point down the many lines of all the things we're doing at some point.
Right, yeah.
But yes, it definitely gave me that essence, especially in terms of that original media creator having a hand in the show version, as Robert Kirkman was very much involved in the Walking Dead show, as he was the creator of the original comics. So when you have that creator hand in there, I think it's really important in shaping the story. And so I loved really seeing the side-by-sides as someone who didn't play the game. Like, they really took dialogue and scenes, staged them pretty much exact to the game. And the actors do a really good job of making it feel like, a show and not like them just trying to recreate a scene from a game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was watching it. I was watching that first episode. Obviously, I knew it was a game, but I was watching it thinking, like, how is this a game? This doesn't seem like it's got any kind of game aspects to it. This just seems like a story. And I know, obviously, the great video games in that world, not in the Last of Us world, I mean in the video game world, tend to be the ones with great stories and great characterization, and this is what's considered the top tier of games. I'm not a gamer. I have precious little knowledge when it comes to the ins and outs of the video game world and what's considered great. All I know is that the last game I really played and got into really well was Red Dead Redemption 2, which was exactly that. It was the story, the characterization, and the world itself that makes that game something I can still put on and just potter around in now. And just ride my horse to various places, because it's just I enjoy that atmosphere. Now I'm led to believe The Last of Us is similar in quality in terms of its story, its characters, its real kind of power as something you are sat with, you are handling, you are journeying with these characters, playing as Joel. I think you do play as yourself, and moments that happen obviously in the story that I have got no idea where this story goes. I do not know the story of The Last of Us past what we saw from episode 1 of this television show at the current time. So well, I forget what I was saying now. My mind's gone, my train of thought's gone, unfortunately. I have no concept of what I have. My train of thought's completely gone. I do apologize.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, I have no idea really where it's going either. I am somebody who is very much a fighting game person, not really a playthrough game person. Like I love watching playthroughs of games and other people doing that, but um that's just not for me. I'm very much a beat 'em up kind of a side
Arcade
scroller,
style.
or definitely an arcade kind of fighting game. So not my brand of game, but I like games that do have stories in them, like, Arkham, the Arkham games have like
Yeah.
great stories kind of involved with them and stuff like that. So yeah, I went into this with very little knowledge of where it was going to go, but in kind of just doing some mild research and looking at people really describing the similarities, I thought it was really interesting, and uh, really some great subject matter and storylines in the game that will lead to, I think, some really great content for the show. So I'm really looking forward to where it's going to go, and even just kind of this ending of what we learn, and how that's going to how this journey with these two characters is going to progress going forward. So
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I did not know the significance of Ellie, for example.
yeah.
I had
Mhm.
no idea. So it's very interesting, really. We're obviously in this ridiculously bleak world, and while I would say that this kind of game probably is my vibe of game, it probably is my style of game, this deeply kind of immersive, you can sit with it for hours upon hours upon hours and kind of jump back into it kind of game.
Yeah.
I think the game's 10 years old now, so it's not 2013. It's, I suppose, the world of video games develops incredibly rapidly, really, doesn't it, in terms of
Yeah.
new technologies
Mhm.
and things like this. So I suppose I imagine there's a remastered version. I think there was a
Oh,
Last of
yeah,
Us
I think there
Part
is.
2 game.
Yeah, mhm.
Um, so perhaps it's wise to kind of go into that once this series is finished, and perhaps check that out for myself, because although it does seem from this first episode, or from what we got from this first episode, that this is going to be a deeply miserable affair of a
Yes,
story.
and I like, something I love about zombie stories is the juxtaposition of the worlds. Again, something very similar that
Mm,
Walking Dead did was showing what the world looked like before all of this. So you kind of know what this is leading to, but getting to see the world before while kind of gradually peppering, like, I love my one of my favorite things in zombie movies is the subtle cues that the world is shifting. I think uh, when I watched Shaun of the Dead with you, and I was talking to you about how I love just the little hints happening around Sean that showed that something isn't right, something's going wrong, something on the radio
yes,
or the
yeah,
TV that's just kind of innocuous in the background and you don't think about. So I love that this show kind of opens with these little subtle things, like you see a kid's hand twitching in the class, and
yeah,
the shopkeeper shooing her out, and so all these different little things happening. The mother, the when she goes to visit the neighbors, and the grandmother is twitching behind her, but she's out of focus and you don't really
yes,
know what's going on. um and we get this opening of a talk show like in the 60s kind of describing um the potential disease, and really getting into the science of it as well. So I like kind of basing it off of real science, because I think this is something that does happen to like ants and that kind of thing, of these spores that kind of take over them and control them, and their primary goal is to just spread. So the fact that something like that could happen to humans, so they're setting up the science of it and making it kind of make sense to something real. And so when you get
it
to these
does. I think
neighbors and you
I think that's what I mean when I say it's a very, very miserable, bleak affair, because it's so. It seems. I mean, this cold open really does a phenomenal
yeah,
job at putting this in deep reality. I mean, as something like 100%, this could happen. And these kind of things always, I never like to watch these things because I'm not a fatalist, you know. I'm not kind of somebody who likes to. I'm not a doom, you know, a doomist or anything like this. I don't like
the
to
end
watch
is nigh.
these type of things. I don't like to think about these type of things. But I can't deny the effectiveness of presenting this in this way. It works perfectly for this particular world, for this particular story, I think. And I can see myself as we go on with this Last of Us series thinking that this show is incredibly well presented, incredibly well made, incredibly well performed. I can see myself praising this show to no end, but in no way will I actually want to watch it again. Do you know what I mean? Because it will be too, I feel it will be too miserable. I feel it will be too depressing. People like this sort of stuff. People really go for this post-apocalyptic just misery because it's a world, it's a genre that creates and allows for great allegorical storytelling. And that's exactly what we're kind of getting in this. There's a lot of, you know, what if the world was to get warmer? You know, there's no guarantee this fungus wouldn't infect your brain and cause you to turn into some weird mustache crustacean creature on the mushroom. I meant mushroom crustacean creature on the
like
wall.
this fungus thing.
It looks horrendous. There's the effects in this were nasty as all hell. It was awful.
Yes, they look very disgusting, and like when the grandmother is like has all these like spore tentacles like coming out of her mouth, like
it's vomit inducing.
Yeah.
Really is.
And I think the
body
game
horror
actually
to a
focuses
fantastic degree.
Yes, and I like even just subtle adjustments that I think they do to make sense in a show kind of world is in the game. I think you can be infected by spores like in the air, but like then you'd have to have if you know in a show aspect you'd have to have your characters wearing masks all the time. So I think they definitely change that to like you know these tentacles that have to like actually touch you because it just wouldn't make sense to have these characters constantly wearing masks and we couldn't see their faces.
Well, it would be really unfortunate for Pedro Pascal to have to wear a mask
wear a
all
mask
the time
yet again.
Yes. In another show that he's leading.
Property.
It would be like he would be thinking, what do I have to do to actually get my face
shown on screen
in one of my TV shows?
Yes. But I think the setup was really well done. I'm really interested in our characters, and then also just kind of shifting to what the world is now to see, you know, this kind of cold, sad person from the person we met in that first, you know, half of the show, and then seeing where Joel is now in terms of just being able to throw this infected kid's body on this pyre without really thinking about it. Like the woman who brings the body is like, I can't do it. And then he can just pick up the body and just throw it like nothing. So just to see after all this time has passed and he's just very numb to this world now and very different from who he used to be. So I like that juxtaposition that we get of kind of the evolution of these characters. We quickly kind of learn how they've shifted, and so we get to know them very fast, and I think that you know how they did it worked really well. So I'm really curious to kind of get into these characters more, really understand like what happened with Joel and his brother, because they seemed you know very kind of tight knit at the beginning, and you know where did the separation between the two of them come from on top of this journey that they kind of have to go on. So I'm really liking what I've seen of this show so far.
Yeah, it hits you with a gut punch right away in this episode, and you know in that first episode, and I just get the sense that that's what this show is going to be, with somebody who does not know the story of The Last of Us, who has never played the game. I just get the sense that this is going to be kind of emotional gut punch after emotional gut punch.
Well, yeah.
But we are going to become very, very fond of these characters and very, very fond of Joel and Ellie's kind of partnership together.
That's going to kind of grow throughout the series, I think. And yeah, like you talked about, like this is a bleak show that you don't think you'd ever watch again. Like again, just to compare it to The Walking Dead, I think it's very similar. Like the only reason I'm rewatching The Walking Dead is because I kind of dipped out at a certain point, and then people kind of talked about how the last kind of closing seasons were actually really good and the show ended. So now I do kind of want to see what I missed. So which requires me to kind of go back and rewatch it again. But if I had seen the whole series, I don't know that I would have needed to go back and watch it again because it's so bleak and all of those things.
I just feel like with, say, the Walking Dead, again, not that I've got much concept of that, but it's always come across to me as a little bit, or it treats itself a little bit fantastically. It treats itself a little bit soap opera-y in terms of its character dynamics, and its world is a little bit more heightened. Like this, to me, The Last of Us just seems so ingrained, and maybe it's simply because we're now living in a world that has just gone through and is still dealing with the effects of a pandemic. Perhaps it is due to that my mind is now, this could happen, this is presented as this could actually happen, and it might actually happen, and that scares me. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yeah.
That I just feel like The Walking Dead would be a little bit more fun, even though it has its darkness to it.
I think, I can understand what you're saying about a little bit of the soapiness, but I do think there is still a very much realness in terms of the characters and the storytelling. I think maybe the later seasons do get a little bit on the heightened side, but I think for the most part, the earlier seasons, maybe going all the way up to season 4, feel very grounded still and real, even though you're dealing with this kind of world of zombies and there's really good kind of character stuff and real feeling stuff and
I do also think as well,
relatable
like,
character motivations.
Like the zombies in The Walking Dead are dead, aren't they?
Yes.
They're reanimated, aren't they?
Yeah.
This is the idea of them. The zombies in The Last of Us are infected.
Yeah.
There's that difference that allows my brain, I think, to go, okay, dead people can't come back. That's fine. I can deal with that. But people can get infected. That is real.
And mutate into this thing. Yes. And so the more kind of real science behind this, I think also adds an interesting element to this show. So.
Obviously, that's entirely what this show is. That's entirely what this game is. And it's going to continue to be that. It's just something that in my mind genuinely quite scares me when I think of it. And I don't like
especially
that.
kind of what we've all been through in the past few years. So, yes,
I don't want to turn into a mushroom.
I know.
I don't.
I bet, like, and just a fungus and spores and all those kinds of things, just very, very creepy in terms of how it looks. And yeah.
I'd rather have the 28 days later rage virus than this. At least I'm just kind of sprinting around, frothing at the mouth in that, turning my eyes red.
You'd rather have the monkey rage. Okay.
Yeah, this is parasitic.
Yes, and
you know what I mean.
Completely just grows, and until you look like a creepy fungus thing.
Really disgusting. Really disgusting. But oh my god, what an opening to this show.
Yes, yeah.
I am very much looking forward to watching the rest of it. As miserable as I do think it's going to be, I think it's going to be brilliant television.
Yes. And yeah, of course, as we discussed our how we tape these shows, the second episode has since been out.
It
but
has.
we will probably talk about it next week, or which we will be on a little bit of a break, but we will be coming with like our opinions through other means. So stay tuned.
Yes, on the channel and things like that, on the YouTube channel, subscribed in the notification bells and all this kind of fun stuff for that. But yes, there will be a little bit more Last of Us conversation coming. I do not doubt that, Jeannine. But it also seems to just really work for Pedro Pascal. I mean, we don't get much of Bella Ramsey in that first episode. We get enough for us to actually seem to enjoy what she's doing. I really like that it is actually her playing it, because I always really liked her as little Lyanna Mormont
Yes, everybody
in
loved
Game of
her.
Thrones.
Yes, so we do get a little fun Game of Thrones characters kind of
We
uniting
do Game of
situation.
Thrones
It's really
merger,
fun. Yeah,
but
which is really fun.
it
Um,
it just seems like this kind of character is built for Pedro Pascal. He just seems to be able to play these very, very
Grouchy
stoic
protectors.
yet hearty.
Yes,
Grouchy protectors is perfect.
yes.
He plays grouchy protectors. They do have a heart. It's
They do,
somewhere.
they do,
They'll just
yes.
never show it.
Yeah,
And Pedro Pascal is perfect in these kind of things.
yes,
He's doing
yes.
when you think about it, he's doing the exact same thing in The Mandalorian,
Essentially, yeah.
essentially.
Having, you know, even in like those when he found Grogu and like the mission to have to take him where he needed to go, very,
Mm,
very similar.
yeah, it's
So
exactly the
yes.
same.
Yes. Also just shout out to you know, Thandie Newton's twin, you know, in her daughter who plays his daughter in the
Oh,
early
right,
part of this.
yeah.
Yes, she looks exactly like her mother. So yeah,
Oh,
she
what a
was great.
horrible scene! What a horrible scene that was.
Yes, so
That was the
sad.
gut punch.
So
That
sad.
and
Yeah.
those were the like side by side things that I have
Yes.
seen. And
Yes.
people were saying on Twitter, "Oh, we all knew this scene was coming in the first episode, and
Yeah.
you guys didn't because you didn't play the game." And no, I didn't. That was horrible.
That was hard, yeah.
It was really hard. Like, we barely know these people, and that was a
Yeah.
horrible scene to have to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah, it was tough.
But
But
yeah, credit to the start of The Last of Us. It's started very strong, particularly
yes.
when you compare it against other video game adaptations.
Yes, which we will get into.
Yeah.
And other new HBO Max premieres. Velma not doing so well. But
Not doing
yeah.
well at all.
No.
Not doing well, being absolutely
I
hammered,
believe
isn't
it has like a 7% on Rotten Tomatoes or
Oh
something like
dear.
that. Yeah. So
Oh
yeah.
dear.
Yes. At least HBO has The Last of Us. So yeah.
And not forgetting the House of the Dragon stuff and all its other great
Yeah.
stuff, to be honest,
Yes.
with
Yes.
HBO. But Jeannine, here we go now. Because this past week you got very excited. You got particularly excited, didn't you? As
I did.
our little friend at
did.
the corner of your screen can testify to. If you are watching this episode, you will notice Jeannine has a little friend
I do.
today.
Shout out to our good
he's an-
friend and patron Steve for my little, if you can see, ghost.
Oh,
face.
there it is. Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yes.
We have a little ghost face.
Yes.
Because Scream 6 got a new extended trailer this week.
Yes. Oh my
Jeannine
gosh.
did
Yes.
do a quick initial reaction to it on our shorts on the YouTube channel. Of course, breaking all things down. There's a second short on there as well, I think, talking about a particular shrine from this trailer. So
yes.
please be aware of spoilers for the trailer. We probably should have made people aware of spoilers for the start of The Last of Us, but given that we're now on episode 2, you feel like people who probably caught up with at least the first one.
Yes.
Although we can never be sure, but we will be now talking about the Scream 6 trailer. And Jeannine, I'm sure you spotted all little different kinds of Easter eggs, so please let me get my thoughts out of the way with first, and then you can do a deep dive that I obviously don't know about in as much depth at all. All I will say is that I really like that they are really treating this as a totally fresh thing for the Scream franchise, a totally new thing. The tagline's New York, new rules. I've got it on my sign today. And whoever's Ghostface in this movie says multiple times in this trailer, I'm someone you know,
I'm something different.
No,
I'm something
different.
Yeah.
You know, you've never seen a ghost face like me before.
Yeah.
And the fact we see this cultish looking shrine of all this ghost face memorabilia by the looks of it. There's costumes in cases. It looks like Iron Man. It looks like Iron Man's little cave in Iron
Yeah.
Man 3 or whatever he had when it was all of his suits
Yeah.
all lined up in glass cabinets. This is what it looks like. There's knives everywhere. Gale and Hayden Panettiere's there, and Jenna Ortega's back, and some of the people from the last movie. But because it's obviously in New York now, I think that's the basic reason as to why this movie feels fresh. But
Yes,
there's
I
a
mean,
really interesting idea with this ghost face. I mean, surely this truly is going to be a type of ghost face we've never seen before. In whatever potentially exciting way that may be, I know you've spoke about perhaps it's someone we may have met in a previous movie because we've never had a ghost face we've previously
that's
met
just something I would
before.
love to see, just to be different and not kind of and veer away
Or
from the typical formula.
or if it's somebody who is truly just deeply studied on the ghost face
Yes.
history, on the
Yes.
history of these in-world ghost faces, has created this cult of people by the
Yeah.
looks of it, because there's several people on this subway train dressed as Ghostface. Are they all involved? Is one of them just in a Halloween costume because it's Halloween? Is one of them actually Ghostface? We're not really sure. We're not really sure. And I will just say this as well. Why are people complaining about Ghostface using a gun? Ghostface always uses guns.
Essentially, when they're not in Ghostface outfit, they that's pretty much when they bring out the guns.
But
And
yes,
the only
okay,
reason,
Ghostface in uniform usually
yes, doesn't
stabs
have it.
people, but
Yeah.
doesn't have to, hasn't always just killed people by
Yeah, we
stabbing
had
people.
Billy had a gun, Mrs. Loomis had a gun, Mickey had a gun. Like we've seen Jill had a gun. We've
Everybody had a gun.
yes, every Ghostface has
Relax.
had a gun. I think Amber had a gun. So
Amber
yes,
had a gun. Last
yes,
Jack Quaid had a gun.
everybody had a gun, but I think it was just Ghostface himself in costume didn't wield the
I
gun.
don't care.
And the
I do
only
not care.
reason I think people maybe thought, oh, he's carrying around the shotgun the whole time, but then in the trailer you do see he took it from the bodega guy, so
Yes,
that's
exactly.
why he has
Yes.
it. Yes. But yeah, just the brutality of this ghost face. Like he looks very
Does look
much just
particularly
yeah,
nasty.
yes, it looks just very brutal, much more brutal than kind of what we've seen before. So already the tone is different.
It's
Um,
almost as though does it not almost to you feel like it's not personal? You know, like Scream 5, I think was kind of felt personal. It felt like there was
yes,
reason behind
yes,
going after Sydney again, going after Dewey, going after Gale. I
yes.
just feel like this is someone who is obsessed with Ghostface but doesn't really care about who they're killing.
Yes, they're just obsessed with these crimes, obsessed with these people who could go and do these things. People have kind of insinuated maybe, instead of it being a focus on the stab movies or movies in general or that kind of aspect of the driving motivation, it being more about kind of what is popular today, which is like true crime and an obsession with kind of true crime
Yeah.
and those
Yeah.
aspects and just the intrigue of getting away with things like this, the obsession that people have with serial killers. We had the Dahmer show, getting awards and things like that. We have serial
It
killers
is
in jail
weird.
who get love letters and accolades and all these things, and people wanting to meet them and befriend them and things like that. And then we get into the original Scream 3 script where, it was supposed to be Stu in prison and kind of mentoring this cult of followers to kind of go out and do these things and kill on his behalf and that kind of thing. And so this brought up a couple of theories for me, and like I kind of have been in comment sections of other videos and people actually bringing up some really good points to me. I kind of brought up the point that Perry Nemiroff, critic who recently
We,
interviewed Kevin Williamson, and
we love Perry Deveroff.
yes, and has point blank asked him. She recently asked him, is Stu dead? And he said, yes, Stu, is dead,
Okay.
and confirmed it. So that's kind of where my mind was going. So I brought that up to somebody in a comment section because we did get the poster where Stu's little dot on the map was like a little bit highlighted, and people really still talking about, oh, well, Stu could potentially come back. But I had people kind of bring up the point where, well, like, I think when Williamson says that, he's glossing over the point that he did actually write a whole ass script where he had Stu alive. So for him to kind of come back now and
Yeah.
say that Stu is dead is interesting. And to the point that he also kind of gave his blessing to Radio Silence to kind of do whatever they wanted. So if they choose to bring Stu back, they could do that if they
Okay.
wanted to. So that was I kind of went back to the person like, that's a good point. So, I've always been very adamant that I don't think Stu would come back or Stu would survive. But kind of in talking to other people and getting those kind of takes, like maybe there is potential for him to have survived in some way or
Be
be
very
alive,
interesting.
or just in general a cult of people who are still very much Stu supporters or something like that. And then even some other things that kind of drive me to this theory of it being very Stu focused. The only Ghostface suit in a glass case in that shrine is Billy's. So, there have been,
Oh,
so that was his partner, that was his guy. So of course he's
that's
going
true.
to, have his suit, the special one, the encased one, and be gunning for the daughter of his partner, you know. And then of
Yes,
course
because
the
that's
underlying
who
the
she is,
under
isn't
yes,
he?
yes. And like if you look at the map, all the lines point to Sam. So um
Ah,
so that definitely I think could play into some things of Stu either being alive or it being very Stu focused, and kind of his relationship to Billy being kind of a driving force in terms of why this is happening. And a lot of talks over the years of was Stu kind of in love with Billy, were there kind of was there a underlying homosexual energy between the two of them, which definitely could play.
yeah.
So just being mad that he lost his Billy and all of these things. So definitely some very good arguments in terms of theories of Stu being alive or it just being very strongly tied to Stu, and that kind of be the starting point to branch off of a cult. I do like the idea of like true crime obsession. So a lot of really interesting kind of theories mulling around in my head in terms of kind of what we were able to see in this trailer.
I do like that actually, because what I did, what I didn't necessarily notice from this trailer was an awful lot of the typical Scream comedy. And I don't
Yeah,
mean that in terms of just silly ha ha, but I mean they're very, very smart in their satire
yeah,
nature, the Scream movies, as half parodies of slasher movies themselves while being incredibly good slasher movies.
yeah,
This is what Scream was birthed as. This is what Scream was always was. Scream 5 certainly did that very, very well. And because this is coming obviously such a short time after that,
after.
with a
Mhm.
lot of the same people, I hope it's going to be that similar attitude to its playing on the comedy. And if we are focusing on, like you said, perhaps playing on people's obsession with true crime and making it about true crime and weird obsession with those kind of things, I think a lot of good comedy could come from that. A lot of good
Yes.
Scream style comedy could
Yes.
come
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
So I like that, but I didn't notice any in this trailer.
No,
So
it was
certainly
very kind of
hope it.
serious and brutal and straightforward. Um,
I certainly
so
hope it doesn't. I certainly hope it has that in there. I don't think it would feel like a
yes,
Scream
I
movie
definitely think
if it is a straightforward slasher.
it needs that comedic tone, but this was straight up kind of a horror trailer, like seeing the kind of shape of Ghostface through that frosted glass door and all of our
Yeah.
characters kind of just waiting with bated breath. And we get flashes of some really solid chases of them having to
Mm.
use a ladder to cross from one apartment to the other, and then you get a flash of Ghostface at the window at the ladder, so the last person on that ladder is probably not making it.
Yeah. And you
We
know
saw
what
quick
Ghostface is
flashes.
always like? Whoever Ghostface is, you know what they're always like? They're always really agile, really
Yes.
quick, really nimble.
Yes. So,
They're not plodding Michael Myers, are they? They're not
no,
just strolling
just walking really
along
slow. They're
slowly.
fast, they're quick. Um, they've got the knife skills, they got it all. So, um, yeah, we get flashes of Tony Revolori and Samara Weaving's characters. So I think
Yes,
people speculate because we kind of just got quick flashes of them, you know, they could be the opening kill potentially. Um,
possibly.
Yes, I mean, theory people kind of theorizing, obviously, probably some of the new characters are gonna be involved in being killers. I would love to see more than 2 killers, because that's something
Yeah, see, this
different.
is what I'm
Um,
this is what I'm thinking of. How this group aspect, this cult aspect, I'm
I think
actually
would be a
really
really cool
into.
thing. Yeah, I think, we have Mindy having a seemingly girlfriend character, so I'm sure that, you know
Yeah,
instead of it being the boyfriend, it being the girlfriend would be an interesting kind of twist to things. Um, we have, um, Dylan McDermott, Dylan McDermott, Dermot Mulroney's character.
oh, it
He
might
is a
as well be
cop.
Dylan McDermott. I mean,
I
my
know
God, how
Dylan
often do
McDermott
I get
Mulroney.
those confused?
Yeah,
Dylan
Dermot
McDermott Mulroney. It's the same person. They don't
Yes,
even look
like
similar.
no, it's just the name. It's just the name. Um, but I was actually having a conversation with my friend Jader, who is obsessed with Scream like I am,
Mm,
and we both kind of agreed. Well, what if Dermot Mulroney's character is involved in some way? I mean, to get all of these pieces of memorabilia that you see in this shrine, uh, these things would be in evidence, and he is a cop. So,
yeah,
you'd have to have some type of cop connection, I would assume, to get access to all of these things, which I do want to kind of go over what is in this shrine as well, before we kind of move on. But in general, it just looks like there's a lot of cool chases. It looks very brutal. This ghost face definitely feels different than what we've seen before. That's what I wanted. Like things that I
yeah,
wanted to see were, multiple ghost faces, more than two, a different motive that's kind of not related to stab. you know, I think and maybe not related to a vengeance directly.
yeah.
Um,
And it does look
I
like that.
Yes, I wanted to see more chases. I think Scream 5 was lacking in that, to really use the
That's
city of New
fair.
York as a playground. Because yes, this is not the first movie where we're getting out of Woodsboro. Of course, we had Windsor College, but we stayed very kind of focused on the college campus, and we had Hollywood, which we were very much on kind of movie sets, and then kind of the mansion at the end. So we weren't really running around the city all that much. So to kind of be
This is that.
in the expanse of New York, I really want that to kind of play, and it seems like it does in this trailer. Um, so I'm really
Do you
excited
think?
for that.
Do you think there's going to be people in actual New York dressed as Ghostface
I
going
mean,
about in the next month?
potentially, I love that it takes place on Halloween. That's something we've never done before. So, I mean, that
But I
would be
mean,
a
like
really
in the
fun.
next month, for
I mean,
marketing reasons, you
I
just have
think
people running
walk
around,
that would be
going
really
about
fun.
as
I
Ghostface
mean, we
just
got
in
something
Times
similar with
Square.
Megan, so
Yeah.
I would love
I
a
mean, it'd
promotional.
terrify people, wouldn't it, really?
Yes,
They'd have to.
yes.
The knife, it's not real. It's not a real knife.
No.
It's fake knife.
Um,
Look, it's
or he has
rubber.
a
Ding,
shotgun. But
ding,
yeah,
ding.
I like the brutality of it. I mean, something we are getting that like everyone's kind of going crazy about is Gail is actually getting her first Ghostface phone call. The fact that Gail has
Oh,
never
yeah.
had
Yeah.
a conversation on the phone with Ghostface, and even in the promotional material, they're like, we have like Ghostface saying the call I've been waiting to make, and showing him calling Gail. So I love
Yeah, it's
that
fun.
we're getting. So it looks like we're getting a lot of new things. Another thing I kind of talked about was like I would love to see, even if not maybe as Ghostface, a character that we've met previously kind of coming back, like somebody that we didn't even think about. Um,
Not
you know,
Hayden Panettiere.
yes. So I would love to see, because Ghostface, like in particular, has never been a character that we've previously met. That
No.
we've met in a previous movie, coming back, and now they're Ghostface. It's always been someone been introduced to in that new movie. So I would love to see. So yeah, like if it was Stu, like I think some people hate that idea, but I would kind of go crazy over it. So yeah, I mean, I was very adamant on Stu being dead, but kind of in having conversations with people. I mean, I think there are signs pointing to, radio silence potentially, maybe, and maybe doing something like that to kind of not necessarily distract, but since we can't have Sydney, something just as kind of big and bold
Yeah.
and awesome for fans. Um, and I will say,
Oh,
like, I didn't, in the format of this trailer, I didn't miss Sydney. My brain was like,
no, that's
I
fair.
like that our girl is getting a break. I like that our girl's kind of getting a moment to be with her family and breathe and not have
Yeah.
to deal with any of this craziness. So I didn't miss her in that aspect. and based on kind of how this trailer was formatted. So
Well, the thing is, we're still getting Gale, and obviously Gale is getting to do
yes,
new
is
things, a la talking to Ghostface directly. So
yes,
it's
yes,
interesting in that way. We're still getting that original cast being more than a big part of this particular
yes,
movie.
yes, and
Um, all else I will say is I've forgotten now. I've completely
I'm
forgotten now.
sorry.
My train of thought is
That's
horrendous. I do apologize, Jeannine.
no,
I
that's
may
okay.
remember it. Please
That's okay.
continue.
So just another thing with the Stu stuff, like he's also been Matthew Lillard himself has been kind of teasy about things. Like just in interviews, he kind of talks about, he does talk about how he was originally supposed to survive in Scream 3 and be the killer. Pictures of him. He was on the set of Scream 2, kind of lurking in the background in a wig because he was dating Nev Campbell and visiting the set that at that time. So Kevin Williamson
Okay.
kind of talks about that as a reason that people assume that Stu is still alive, but also use that as a reason to confirm that he wasn't. So, um, but Matthew Lillard himself definitely has been teasing things. I think he recently put a tweet out kind of just talking about, I mean, it was just a TV, right?
Interesting.
He literally tweeted something like it was
Interesting.
just a TV. Like so I don't
Very
know.
interesting. This is what I wanted to say. All else I will say is let us not be disappointed if our ideas do not come to fruition in this movie, especially if it ends up being a well told story and a well told movie itself. Just
Yes.
in case I do not like to do this. So I do not like to go into movies wanting a particular thing.
Yeah, these well, these
And
for me
I
are
feel
like
like we're at fear of doing this.
these are wish list things for me just in terms of ideas to make it feel different from what we've seen before. In general, these are just things that for me would make it feel different from any Scream movie. But
Not
just
requirements.
yes, they are not strict requirements. It's just general ideas I have about what could make what could make
Okay.
this movie different than the other ones. So in general, all I'm asking for is for this film to do something different than the other Scream films have done. Because
Well,
while
it
I do
certainly
love our
looks
typical
like it's
Scream
going to do
formula,
that.
that is what I want. So, and then yeah, just love Kirby coming back, and I do think she's like a cop or a detective or something. So that's
Yeah.
kind of going to be a cool thing as well. So just to kind of close this off, I do kind of want to go over what is in the shrine, and then
Oh,
we can
yes, yes, please do.
yes. So I mean, I don't want to take credit for finding all of these things. These are the things I originally saw in my kind of first glimpse. I literally watched the trailer before I had to go to work, and the things I saw were um we had a bloody cop uniform. So, we've had several Woodsboro cops get killed.
We
So,
have.
yeah, so it could have been Dewey's, it could have been Haas or Perkins from Scream 4. We see a shirt in between. Next to that one, it's a gray shirt. I couldn't really tell who it was, but again, to my great friend Jader Paramo and Scream enthusiasts, we constantly text each other about, oh my gosh, Scream this, oh my gosh, Scream that. He did. I asked him about it, and he said he thought it was Olivia's shirt, the girl who gets killed in Scream 4, like one of Jill's friends. Um,
Okay.
and then next to that is a mask from the play that Sydney did in Scream 2. Other things we see
Right.
that I did see was Jill's outfit, her flannel outfit that she was wearing, at the end of Scream 4. We see the lightning prop that Derek, Sydney's boyfriend, was strapped to in Scream 2. We see like a film clapper thing from the set of Stab 3. We see Mrs. Loomis's white suit that she was wearing at the end of Scream 2 and her gun, I believe. We see Billy's bloody shirt. We see Stu's robe from the party. We see Tatum's outfit from when she was killed.
Yeah.
We see like a case in the back with I think more stab memorabilia. It's like a ghost face mask and like some stab posters. So those were all of the things I saw. But then in kind of watching, of course, all these deep dive people, they pointed out you could see like Kenny's baseball, the cameraman from the first movie, his baseball hat that he was
Okay.
wearing. You could see a case with all of Gail's books that she's written on the Woodsboro
Okay.
things. You could see Steve, the very first on-screen kill of Scream. The
Yeah.
dummy is actually taped to a chair like him wearing his Letterman jacket, and they even put like tape over the dummy's like face. Um
Wow.
You see the TV that crushed Stu next to like where
Okay.
his robe is, which I
Okay.
thought was really cool. Somebody pointed out in another glass case where the film clapper is, you can see the frying pan where Ghostface hit Patrick Warburton, who was like the bodyguard to
Okay.
Parker Posey, the
Okay.
frying pan, and then the fax machine from Scream 3 with that very convoluted explosion where everyone had to keep like getting the faxes and going back in the house.
Wow.
Yeah, like
It's a
I don't
frightening amount of
the
tiny little things that are
things
in this
like yeah,
particular
these are
shrine.
definitely things I did not see. So just in watching videos, these are things people pointed out.
This is obsession, Janine. This is
Yes,
true
yes.
obsession
I
from
mean,
whoever's
us
made this shrine.
us, yes. And then we see all 9 Ghostface suits. So, and there
Yeah.
looks like there's little nameplates under each of them. And Billy's is in the case. And the mask we do
So
see in that first opening is a cracked, weathered
yes, it
mask.
is.
So safe to say it's probably Billy or Stu's original mask. Um,
That's a
you know, very
good
much a
thought
la
there.
Michael Myers. So
Yeah,
so
using the same mask I used 40 years ago. Of course you
yes, but
are,
then we
Michael.
also see
Sure.
in the trailer Sam holding it. So, you know, um, so
Who
I don't know.
knows? Who knows?
Yes. So
Who
I'm just
knows?
all I know is I'm excited. So I'm
Yes.
so excited for
As
this
am
film.
I.
Yes. And so I'm waiting. I'm excited for you to revisit these films because I talked to you about Scream and you just like
Well,
blank
2 and
face
3.
and 4,
2
I
and
think.
3,
I think you need
4-ish. I know 4 more than 2 and 3. 1 and 5, I'm fine.
yes. Well, I definitely want to be able to talk to you about these movies and have you not give me a blank stare like when I'm
Yes.
like, remember when that happened? And you're like,
Not
"Mm."
really, no, I watched it years and years ago.
Yes.
Um,
Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing and that thing, and I'm going crazy. So, yes, just so excited. I even
I
might
would
have a
just
character
like
cosplay planned for my premiere
Ooh.
going situation.
I would just like maybe we haven't seen this in the shrine yet, but perhaps we'll see this in the movie as as an Easter egg type thing. Drew Barrymore's jumper from, because
I
it's just a
mean,
really nice jumper. I like the
yes,
jumper. I
yes.
would wear it. You know, it's something I would wear.
I
So
know. Like I've wanted to do a
I'd
Casey
like to
Becker
see that.
cosplay for a long time just so I can have that sweater. It's really
I
nice.
could absolutely just pull that off, couldn't I?
You
If I
could.
just did my hair a certain way and just wore that, it'd look like me. And it's the kind of stuff I wear anyway.
I mean, if you wore that wig, you'd look kind of like a little schoolboy.
I would look a bit silly, yes, I
You would
would.
need like a giant lollipop and like a little like sailor cap, just your beard. And think of Morgan with the Drew Barrymore wig from Scream with his beard. Like you look like a little lollipop boy.
Why do I have to be like German? Do I have to be German or
I
Swiss or Austrian?
I mean, that's the vibe.
Are you just?
Sure.
Do you think I'm what's his name from Simpsons? What's his name? What's his name? The little like
You
Austrian
would look
kid
like
from
a
The Simpsons.
oh
Ute.
yes.
Do you think I
With
look
your
like him?
I mean, with some lederhosen and that wig and your beard.
Oh man! Why do I have to be wearing lederhosen now? I've not said anything
that
about
wig that wig
lederhosen.
on a man with a beard, it would just scream that. You would be like that is in
Well,
cream,
I
a
won't do
blonde.
it then.
You would be a blonde version of that weird that is in cream guy.
Well, I won't do it then. I apologise for liking Drew Barrymore's lovely jumper. I won't do
Yes.
it
I
then.
mean you could do it. I don't think the wig is a good.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'll just put my normal ghost face outfit on
Yes, you do have a
again.
ghost face mask.
I
Yes.
do have a ghost
So,
face outfit. Yes, I do. I
but
have the
yes.
full cloak as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So
very
yes,
big. I trip over it. Really, it's
it's really long.
massive.
That is not very
Probably
smooth.
need shortening
Yeah.
properly. No, I'm not very
I need to get
agile in
my
my full ghost face
I
cloak.
would love to see you take that to a tailorist. I need
Can I
to
have my ghost face cloak shortened, please? What?
yeah. Can you like
No,
hem
you can't. I'm phoning the police.
Can you hem these like little drapey like tendrils ghost face costume?
Please make the ends
Yes.
slightly
Then
jaggedy.
they would immediately call the police.
They would. They would. 100%. I'd have to do it myself.
Yes, yes. But
Customizing Ghostface
yes.
outfits.
I'm just so excited for this movie. This trailer got me hyped. It definitely looks like it's doing something different than what we've seen before, which is what this franchise needs, particularly with not
Yeah.
having our Sydney back. Then just, that opens the door to we don't have our kind of marquee characters. So that just opens your door to do something completely different. And I think that's what they're going to do. And I'm so excited. So, yes, I will be
Yeah.
doing tons of Scream content, just talking about things I love, some fun Easter egg videos, some reviews of each film, ranking videos, all kinds of random Scream related stuff because, you see how much I love talking about these movies. So, I have done that in different forms on the channel. So please look out for some fun Scream related content coming out, all leading up to this new movie, all up on the channel. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jeannine, let's get into a little bit of a let's talk today.
Yes.
Let's talk some video game movies in honor
All
of The Last of
right.
Us. Even though The Last of Us is obviously a television show, we decided to watch 3 video game movies each.
Yes.
I'd never seen any 3 of the ones I'd watched. Jeannine, I think a couple of them.
I've seen 2 of the 3. There was one I
Okay,
hadn't
you've seen
seen.
2 of the 3. But yes, we just decided to watch some reasonably notable video game adaptations, and
Yeah.
yes, let's talk about them and what we thought. Now, Jeannine, would you like to start?
Yes. So one of the films I watched was one I had seen once before, and I remember it being really bad. And yes, it continued to be very bad. I watched it because it's based on my favorite video game franchise, which is Tekken. So they did
Oh,
do I think a straight to streaming movie. I want to say it was like 2010. Um
okay.
uh based on the popular fighting game. And this film was just not good. I mean, the production quality is not great. The costuming is very much like Halloween costumes, but they're trying to like make it like the
Oof.
iconic costumes from the game. The characterization of the characters just is not right. Um, they get the same actor who plays Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat to be the big bad in this movie, Heihachi, which is like the big, mean kind of boss character. And he has like this crazy hair that kind of like sticks out from each side. And they tried to give him that hair in live action and it just looks ridiculous. They also try to give him a moment where he's kind of being a good guy, which is very much not the character at all.
Not right. We don't
No,
want that.
no. The story of Tekken kind of follows this generational thing. There's Heihachi, his son Kazuya, who absolutely hates him, and then Kazuya has a son with like one of our good characters, Jin. But Jin, he's kind of like the best version of these 3
Okay.
characters. Heihachi's this terrible person. He was, I think, training Kazuya as a child. Kazuya wasn't strong enough. So he throws Kazuya off a cliff and says, if you are my son, if you are a true fighter, you'll be able to climb back up.
Nice.
Kazuya almost dies. And then the devil comes to visit him and tells him, if you give me your soul,
Okay.
I will help you survive. So just so he can live long enough to get vengeance on his father, he takes this deal. So now he has like this devil kind of inside of him.
Okay.
So then when he, does make a child with our good character June, that child Jin, who is a good character, does have a devil gene inside of him. So it's kind of like these 3 generations of these characters kind of constantly warring. So Kazuya wants to kill his father and Heihachi wants to get Jin because he wants to like get that devil gene to like use for power or whatever. So that's kind of the core story of Tekken. And then we have all our characters.
All this ridiculously complex, fantastical story for what is a fighting game.
Yes. So that is kind of like the big conflict. But then, of course, you have your surrounding fighter characters who probably have more generic kind of motivations. So there were a plethora of things and stories and fun characters that they could have followed that could have really played into what people love about the game. I feel like this movie was not some big mainstream movie that was released in theaters. So it's pretty much made to cater to fans of the game. So you could have put storylines that were attached to the games because you know who's watching this movie. But they just chose to like make up their own story, make up their own like places. Like Tekken relates to Iron Fist, which is the name of the big tournament, but they made Tekken the name of the city and they made Tekken the name of a
No, okay.
corporation and they just put like Tekken all over the place. So it was just kind of weird and like made characters motivations nothing like what they are in the game. Trying to have like these sexy moments with characters, like literally this character Christy, she's like a capoeira fighter, and they tried to like make her like this sexy girl who seduces Jin, and they have her like in these pants where like you can see her butt crack. Like I don't
No, that's
know.
not
No.
nice.
So yeah, it was just
It might be nice. It might be nice, really, but it's probably
no.
not a practical
Um
outfit.
yeah, I mean, it was just very cheesy. The fights were decent, but like how they were filmed were really bad and shaky and trying to be like,
Mm.
electric guitar kind of thing and
Oh,
like
so
really fast
we love it.
paced. And it was just very sloppy.
This was what, 2010, and we're in mid 90s, late 90s grungy guitar vibes. What's going
Yes.
on?
I mean, we had a character played by Darren Henson who was like a pop choreographer. So like he
Okay.
choreographed dances for Britney Spears and NSYNC, and um he had like his own set of like dance videos, Darren's dance grooves, like work dance workouts, whatever would teach you the dances. Um
Okay.
and he appeared in this movie. So like it's just a random mishmash of things that is very just a hollow interpretation of things from the game. And so it was very disappointing to say
Yes,
the
it doesn't
least.
sound great, Jeannine. I mean,
No.
what is it with these fighting game movies and making something feel way more complex than I think it needs to be when it's
Yeah.
based on a fighting game? Because one of the movies I watched was 1994's Street Fighter with
Yes.
Jean-Claude Van Damme and Raul Julia and Ming Na Wen, who's in
Yes.
this movie,
Yes.
who's like, I was quite pleased to see Ming Na Wen. Kylie Minogue is in this movie.
It's
What's
Kemi.
going on there? I was
Yes.
really not concerned, surprised. Like, I just baffled as to
Yeah.
why someone like Kylie Minogue was in this movie. Simon Callow was in that movie.
Yeah.
Bizarre things going on in this. But I was watching Street Fighter and I was saying to myself, okay, Jean-Claude Van Damme's doing typically Jean-Claude Van Damme things. That
Yes.
this is
But
fine.
the funny thing about him being Guile is like all American
But yes,
character.
I do not get me wrong.
He
This
literally
is what
has
I'm
an
saying.
American flag tattoo.
Yes, I was watching this movie and I was looking up Street Fighter whilst watching this movie because I have no concept of it. I just know it's a fighting game.
Yeah.
So story-wise, I have absolutely no concept. And everything that I was reading was just like, well, this is deeply not what's going on in this movie at all.
Yeah.
Like, why has this movie got next to no actual fighting in it?
Fighting. Yeah, there's
And
no like
it's
fighting
more,
tournament. There's no characters. Yeah.
it's like, give me, was it also 1994 Mortal Kombat? Give me that. Give me that way more over this movie as in terms of, I think, what feels like actually an adaptation of the video game, because this is some sort of dystopian, campy, revolutionary movie
Yes, like
that
M. Bison is
doesn't
this
seem to have
dictator.
anything at all to do with fighting or some sort of fighting tournament or anything. And don't get me wrong, Raul Julia, I think, is absolutely great in this
He is
movie.
so good. This is his last film, and the fact that he is just killing it with this ridiculous material.
He
And
knows what he's doing. He knows the
yes.
kind of movie he's in. And I
So
just think
good.
he's giving the perfect level of ham. And I think
Mhm.
it's incredible to think of the fact that obviously at this point in his life he was suffering greatly
Yeah.
and would die very, very soon after.
I
The movie's
mean, on that
dedicated to Raul Julia.
second Adam's Family, Angelica Houston talks about how he was very sick doing that second
Yeah.
movie. So he was already kind of in decline
Yeah.
going into this film.
But I think I enjoyed aspects of it. I enjoyed the weirdness of it.
Yeah,
It's definitely something I think I would watch again for just
just for
fun
fun.
campiness,
Yeah.
because it's that to a T. It's perfect that to a T. But I did feel like
It's
the
definitely
need
not the
to
games.
search what the game was if I didn't obviously know enough
Yeah.
about it. And it just wasn't any.
No, it wasn't.
Where's the fighting tournament? There's no fighting tournament. Street Fighter's all about Raul Julia hosting a fighting tournament, and there's
Yes.
none of that. It's
And
Raul Julia kidnapping a bunch of people and Van Damme coming
Ryu
to save them.
Ryu is typically your main character in Street Fighter, but because they had uh
Because it's
Van
Van Damme, you
Damme,
have to make it Van Damme.
Guile is the lead character.
Weird.
And the fact that like he's
Weird.
like this all-American being played by
And
Jean-Claude
it's
Van
Van
Damme.
Damme.
It's like,
couldn't be less American if he
yeah.
wanted. If he tries,
Yeah.
he's about as American as Schwarzenegger thinks he is as well.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
So
you're not
yeah.
actually
No.
American. You can't. When you speak like that. Oh,
Yeah.
hello, I'm Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm
Yeah.
from Belgium. I'm going
He's an
to
all-American
come for you,
soldier. Yeah.
General Bison. Like,
Yeah.
you're from Belgium, Van Damme. You're not American.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yes. So it was very
Weird movie. weird movie.
But I'm glad you
But
finally
somewhat
watched it.
enjoyable. Somewhat
Yes.
enjoyable. Yes.
Yes. Well, you do talk about Street Fighter. And you mentioned Mortal Kombat, which is what
I
I
did.
watched. I had to.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite movies, just generally.
Did a lovely watch along of Mortal
We
Kombat
did,
all
and
that
you were
time
like
ago.
fist pumping to the like you were getting into it. But I love this movie. I actually remember seeing it in theaters. Like me and my brother we actually played Street Fighter more, but we did also play Mortal Kombat and
I think Street
enjoyed.
Fighter's supposed to be like one of the best selling games ever, or is it Street Fighter 2?
I think
That's
it's
like
Street Fighter
one of
2
the
and just like
best
in
selling games
arcades.
ever.
Yes. So I definitely was more of a Street Fighter fan in terms of games than Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat movie leaps and bounds. I just think so much more fun than
It's
than
just silly. It's
it's
perfect silliness.
it's perfect. And they also really try to kind of get elements of the game. I loved the characters. I loved the story that they crafted around because I don't think Mortal Kombat really had that much of a story. So they had more freedom, I think, to kind of create a story, but still keep it set in kind of things that we could see from the game. So I think being able to do that made it a lot of fun. So the characterization of the characters fit very much into, how they were in the game. So I think that worked, and I remember seeing this in the theaters and just being so hyped up. Like I remember, at the end of the movie, I went to the bathroom and I'm just in the stall, like doing the I don't think so, like striking poses and stuff. And me and my brother were
Oh,
just
God.
like quoting it and just like I absolutely just have so much fun with this movie. I think the fighting and the action scenes are really great. I really love our characters. I know you hate Christopher Lambert, but I thought he was fun as
I
Raiden.
kind of do. I kind of do, yeah. I don't hate. He's just weird.
It's
I don't
very
know what it's about like, you think I've got something against people who speak French, but I haven't. I haven't.
no, but I can see why people maybe wouldn't be a fan of that depiction. He's just very silly and cartoony, but I think he's very much like Raul Julia in terms of he just having fun. Like he doesn't care. He's
Yeah.
just going for it. But yeah, I think the fights were really great. And really fun. The locations. And yeah, we have a great quotable villain, some great lines.
Oh,
So
we
I think
do.
he was definitely much better in this than he was in the Tekken movie as Shang Tsung. But yeah, I mean, we'll love Mortal Kombat I definitely think it's like one of the best video game remakes. So
Well, I think in terms of enjoyability,
yes, it's so fun
in
to
terms of just
watch.
pure fun,
But I
I
know
think it works.
yes. So I really love Mortal Kombat. It's one of my favorite movies just in general to put on. It's just so fun and crazy and still a touch of really trying to invoke a lot of things. And like scenes and clips and characters and dialogue directly pulled from the game and worked into the story in a way that makes sense, not just thrown in there because it's in the game. Thrown in there like working it actually into the story. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
credit to it for that.
Yes.
Credit to it for that.
And I mean, you did a film from the same director of this movie as well.
Oh, I did. I
You
did.
did.
Yes. I forget that Paul W.S. Anderson,
Mhm.
who also directed Resident Evil,
Yes.
of which there's now 6, I think, Resident Evil movies.
Yeah.
I watched Resident Evil, the first one from 2002. Again, I've got little concept of Resident Evil, the game, other than the fact that it's an
Like a
action, let's
zombie.
kill a load of zombies game.
Yeah.
We're trapped in a facility and
Mhm.
we have to kill all these infected people.
Yeah.
And essentially, to be fair, that's exactly what the movie is. So I've got to give it credit to that. It's got
Yeah.
absolutely nothing else to it other than, oh, look, Mila Jovovich has woken up. She's forgotten things. Oh, look, there's an organisation. They're in a place called The Hive. Nobody else really has a character at all, apart from Mila Jovovich in the entire movie.
Yes. And
Michelle
Michelle
Rodriguez is there
doing the
doing
same
Michelle
thing
Rodriguez things,
that she does in everything. Yeah.
which we can't fault her for because she's
No.
always great at doing that, and she
She's
does it
great.
really well in this movie. Oh dear, Michelle Rodriguez turns into a zombie at the end of the movie, which is supposed to be, you know, obviously the big
This
emotional
emotional
part,
thing.
but
Yeah.
the fact that the movie doesn't really give us any time to spend with any sort of character development or anything like that, and is far more interested in literally just being a crazy early 2000s balls out action horror movie.
Yeah.
That I'm led to believe is exactly what the game is as well. So you can't
Yeah,
fault it for doing
essentially.
that.
Yeah.
And I will admit to having fun with it. I'm not overly sure why there are 6 of them. I
Yeah.
always get them confused with the Underworld movies.
They're pretty different. I do actually enjoy the Underworld movies, but
Which I think are vampire based.
vampires and werewolves,
Vampires
lichens.
and werewolves. Lichens, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think they've just got the same kind of action horror early 2000s vibe to them. Probably. And similar looking leads. Beckinsale, is it Beckinsale?
Yeah, Kate Beckinsale, yeah. I think that's where she met Michael Sheen. So because
Okay.
he was a lichen in those movies.
Yeah, okay. But I had fun with Resident Evil as well. I mean, it's incredibly 2002. Like I said, nobody apart from Mila Jovovich has any sort of real character depth at all.
Yeah.
I enjoy Michelle Rodriguez doing action-based
The same
things
thing
because
she
she's
does and
always good at
everything.
it.
Yeah.
And it's a perfectly
Serviceable.
action horror movie. It
Yes.
is. And it seems to me to have been actually a really rather authentic depiction of its own game.
Okay. Yeah, because I've never played the game, and
I know
only seen
I've
that
never
movie.
played the game, but from what I could
From what you
figure
could
out,
kind of look, yeah.
it seems to be. So I'll give Resident Evil credit for that. So fair play
Okay.
to Resident Evil, I think.
Okay. Mine is one I'd never seen.
Ooh,
Obviously
a last
very
one.
yes, very popular. I think it did well. I think it's maybe seen on the better end of video game adaptations, but very much of its time, and that is Tomb Raider. The
Presumably the
the
Angelina
Angelina
Jolie
Jolie.
one.
Yes, I saw the Alicia Vikander one, and it was very boring. And yeah, um, yeah, the Fassbender
Not good.
family is not not the best track record for video game adaptations.
Yes, thank God
Mr. and
none of
Mrs.
us watched
Fassbender. Yeah, I thought about
none of
watching
us watched
Assassin's Creed. I
Assassin's
do actually have
Creed.
an Assassin's Creed Funko Pop that I forcibly got in a loot crate box.
I
So
have actually played some of Assassin's Creed as well, so I know
it's right here.
ish a little bit about it.
So yes, if
What
anybody is a fan of the Assassin's Creed
here it is.
movie and wants this Funko Pop, yeah.
What I never really liked about the Assassin's Creed movies was the fact that it wasn't just in the past. It had to be some sort of, oh,
Technology
let's
simulation.
let's simulate all this techie, graphicy weirdness, and let's all talk about computers and science. No,
Yeah.
just give me
Just
the
go
17th century, please.
Yeah, the real thing.
I'm
So,
not interested in the modern day. Go back in history and let
yeah.
me climb over buildings, please, and stab people with a big sword.
Yeah. But yes, the Fassbender family, not the best video game movie track record. But yeah, it was the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider that I watched for the first
Okay.
time. Very much, mustache twirling villain. Just very weird. Her trying to put on this British accent while Daniel Craig was trying to put on an American accent was very confusing. um, the music felt very kind of cheesy, like um, it felt very much like the music that like spoof movies use for action
Oh dear.
sequences, like the
Oh
music,
dear.
like um if you think of there's like a fight scene in the movie Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo,
Oh
and the
my
music
god.
the music in this ridiculous spoofy fight sequence that's also kind of just um kind of mocking the Matrix. That music felt like the music that was in this Tomb Raider movie.
Jeannine, you're not allowed to talk about Juice
I know.
Bigelow
I know. It's
because you
just
have
yeah.
history of
I have
fighting with
I mean,
Mr. Schneider.
We made up. He
Why?
apologized.
He's a weirdo. He's got worse on Twitter. Have you seen him?
No, I have not. And
He's got
it's very
worse.
triggering. It's very triggering, but he did apologize to me. So,
Yeah.
but yes, the music like in very kind of silly movies that are supposed to invoke action is like the general score of Tomb Raider.
Oh dear.
Um just this very explicit scene of her showering, like okay, some very explicit side boob. Okay. Um
Um, Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider, I think, has always had this reputation of
yeah.
being deeply nerdy, sad guys in basements going, Tomb
Lara
Raider.
Croft. Yeah, so I will say
Lara
there was
Croft, having posters of Lara Croft in the world and basically just crying over the fact someone has a pair of boobs.
yes, I'd rate her too. you know.
Precisely these
You
kind
know.
of statements, yes.
But I think in terms of look, they definitely made her look like the character in the game. They had her doing some tomb raiding action, so I
Good.
appreciated
That's
that.
what she should be doing.
Very good characterization of this person. But yes, just in terms of kind of like your hero villain dynamic, very kind of obvious. I didn't like seeing this jet black dyed hair of Sir Jorah Mormont,
Oh dear.
as our
Oh
villain.
dear.
Uh
Poor Ian
yeah.
Glenn.
Yes, he was very much being a mustache twirly, like, yeah, I need to get this artifact, yeah, so I can do this thing, yeah, like that's uh, you
Oh,
know,
for
we
God's
see him
sake.
getting, massages of women walking on his back and like, he just
Oh dear.
rich, boss man villain, just very
Yes.
kind of corny. But I will say the action is good. I think, from the little I know of the game, it seemed very much like what we would get from the game. So, uh, again, a serviceable
Good.
video game
Good.
adaptation. Character looks like the character, solid action, and a clear villain, some really over the top, very much feeling like it's in a soundstage action sequences. cheesy action music, very much of its time. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Tomb Raider for what
So
it was, but it will never beat Mortal Kombat in my heart. And
it seems
you
like
know,
it works in a similar sense to what Resident Evil was doing
yeah,
at that particular time as well, which you give credit to something that
yeah,
actually wants to be an adaptation of the video game it's adapting, Street
yes,
Fighter, you know, and
exactly.
also kind of my last movie, which isn't remotely an adaptation of any video game of this particular character I've
But
ever come across.
something that's actually well received, I think.
Well received, well received. I think it's a perfectly good movie. I watched Sonic the Hedgehog from 2020.
Yeah.
The movie that famously got its entire Sonic look changed because nobody liked the look of it from the first trailer.
Yes, which made an
And
amazing joke in the Chip and Dale movie. So good.
okay, I don't know that. I don't know.
There's like a Comic Con for like old cartoon characters, like old cartoony characters, like doing their cartoon shows is their job. So then they go to like these
Okay.
comic book conventions, and one of the booths is Ugly Sonic. Is that old version of Sonic,
Oh God.
and he's
Okay.
literally just like built as like Ugly Sonic, and he has
Well,
teeth,
he was.
and he looks creepy, and
He
yeah,
was.
he's
He was ugly, creepy Sonic, and the
yeah,
Sonic we actually have in 2 movies now. I didn't watch
yeah.
the second movie. Looks really quite good. I like James Marsden in this
Mhm.
movie as
Yeah.
Sonic's buddy and protector. I like the fun, kind of frantic attitude of Sonic.
Yes.
I think he comes across as a good adaptation of what I know
That character to
Sonic
be.
as the character
So yes, even
to
though it's
be,
not in that world that we
but
know,
which
he's
is a
still
shame.
that
Which
character. Yeah.
because I didn't really know. I didn't really know kind of what the movie was. I knew who was in it,
Yeah.
but I'd never seen it. I think Jim Carrey. I think Jim Carrey's actually quite good as
I mean, this
Robotnik.
is like yeah, I feel like we hadn't seen him like this in a really long time, so it was nice
No,
to kind
he's
of see him
doing. He's
much
doing.
more
Particularly the
thoughtful.
end. The end scene. I think right before the credits, it teases us with like a full, real Robotnik look when he's kind
Yeah.
of banished to another world.
Yeah.
And that I just felt, yes, this is very accurate. This is very good. I would actually watch the sequel to this movie
No,
to
yeah, I
see,
recently watched both of them for the first time, and they were a lot of fun.
to see a very seemingly accurate Robotnik,
Yeah.
Eggman or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually used to
I think it would be quite
I
good.
don't know if I just couldn't read or something, but yes, I used to think his name was Robotink when I would like read it on the screen. My brain would just read it as a Robotink. So for the longest
Yeah, you
time,
could see why.
I
That's
thought his
fair. I
name
don't
was
think that's
Robotink. Yeah.
Robotnik. I've actually always referred to him as Eggman.
Okay.
I very rarely call him Robotnik, but
Robotnik.
obviously the
Yeah.
movie makes a big decision to refer to him constantly as Dr. Robotnik. But it was a shame to me how we kind of only got the world of Sonic at the very, very beginning of this movie when we briefly see a little flashback of kind of kid Sonic before he gets brought to or sent to Earth.
Real world, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a really sweet kind of movie. It's a buddy movie.
Yeah.
It's almost E.T.-ish in its
A little
the
bit.
government's after Sonic. Please protect Sonic, and then kind of you end up housing him
friendship
at
kind
the
of
end.
develops.
A friendship developments that you didn't think was going to be there, and people are initially scared of Sonic. I do admittedly think I just really would have preferred the movie had it been the equivalent of, I think, what this new Super Mario Brothers movie is going to be.
Very much set in the world of Sonic, because Sonic's world is so cool. Yeah.
Sonic's world is really cool. I have played Sonic games. I really enjoyed the Sonic
I played them
games
on
I have
Sega.
played.
Like that was one of my favorite Sega games.
I like Shadow. I liked Shadow, the obviously the dark broodings version
Oh, mm-hmm.
of Sonic, who's just I'm going to. He's half a villain, isn't he? Shadow.
Which I
Really
think they tease him maybe at the end of the second one. I don't
Okay.
remember.
I
But
would
yes, next
like
second we do get Knuckles and Tails in the second one.
Knuckles and
So
Tails. Yes, we want
yeah,
Knuckles, and we like Knuckles. We
Idris
like
Elba
Tails.
is Knuckles. So
We want Amy and the other one, who I forgot the name of now. I like them. I like the world. I always really enjoyed playing Sonic games as far as arcade games go.
yeah,
Really enjoyed Sonic. Really enjoyed Mario as well. But
yeah.
I enjoyed this movie, even though it just felt like it wasn't really a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Even though obviously he's the main character, there was nothing
But yeah,
inherently Sonic the Hedgehog about it. Other than the fact he was obviously the lead, which is, I mean, tonally, I mean, world-wise. I enjoyed
yes.
the movie. I did enjoy the movie, though.
Yeah, no, I really I was surprised by Sonic. I thought it was going to be really cheesy and let's bring Sonic into the real world kind of thing, but they actually made it work. And like those
They
ET
did.
vibes, I think were really fun. Yeah, I recently watched both of them for the first time, so it was a nice surprise. And I feel like we are definitely kind of getting into the era of video game movies actually doing some interesting things and not having this terrible kind of curse set upon them. uh, so
Yeah.
yes, I think we both watched a pretty interesting mishmash of things. I'm glad we got some. Morgan hasn't seen moments where you got to kind of discover some new movies that were very much of pop culture that you had never seen before. So I think that's always a fun thing. I got to see a
Yeah.
new movie that was pretty popular that I had never seen, and revisit a favorite and just see something miserable that I never need to see again. So yeah. Yay.
Ever watch Tekken?
Yes, don't.
Ever. Lovely stuff. There are some nice video game adaptations for you, that all of which are in no way as deeply emotionally invested
As the
in
last one.
recreating the video game as The Last of Us
Yeah.
clearly is.
Yeah.
Jeannine, let's end this episode, as we always like to, with some fun and games and the return of a nice game of 6 Degrees, which
All
it's been a
right.
little while since we have played. I'm usually dreadful at 6 Degrees games, Jeannine, so I have been granted permission to use one clue and actually research the first
Yes.
link that
So
I'm
we're going to be
going to be
doing
performing.
a very basic link to the Scream Killers. So we're going to give each other 3 Scream Killer actors, and that's all they have to go off of, starting with a project of theirs that is non-Scream related and somehow get to a Scream movie.
Yes, in any number of links.
Yes. So all
Any
you have is
number
a
of links,
name,
or as
a
few
name.
as we can get.
Yes. All you have is an actor name of somebody who's played a Scream killer
Yeah.
using something non-Scream related to get them to
Okay.
Scream, any Scream movie.
Okay, I'm ready, but I'm not ready because I'm not going to do very well, because I never do very well, because I always forget who's who and who's been in what, don't I? Yes, I do.
Yes. It's part of
Jeannine,
the
would you like-
madness.
It is part of the madness. Jeannine, would you like to go first?
I always do.
Well, I want you to get to any Scream movie, starting with Emma Roberts, who of course was the killer in Scream 4.
Okay, Emma Roberts, which I can't even think of any movie she's been in except this really terrible rom-com with Hayden Christensen called
Hayden
Little Italy,
Christensen might be useful.
where they are like in rival pizza restaurants, and it's really bad.
Okay.
And I think it was like maybe a straight to streaming movie or something. But yes, Little Italy. Emma Roberts was in Little Italy with Hayden Christensen.
He's useful though, Hayden Christensen, because
Yes.
of what he's been in.
who was in Awake
Oh.
with Terrence Howard,
No.
who was in
Oh, we're there.
I
We're
think I
there.
got it. Who was in Best Man with Morris Chestnut,
Oh.
who was in a movie we'll be covering soon on the show, Two Can Play That Game, with Anthony Anderson, who was in Scream 4
Okay.
as
Okay.
as Perkins, the cop.
Nice. Nice. Well done. Using best man. We like that. We
Yes.
like that. Morris Chestnut. Okay. Oh dear. It's my turn.
Okay.
Prepare yourself, everyone.
We'll give you an easy one. An easy one to start.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Matthew
Oh, no.
Lillard.
Matthew Lillard. Hi. I'm Matthew Lillard. I was in Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo's quite useful, actually, for that time and period and things. Scooby-Doo, Sarah Michelle Gellar. And then you just go straight to Scream.
Which one?
2.
Good job. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, very easy.
Yes.
I
Success.
took pity on you because we did establish Morgan is very lacking in his Scream knowledge. So, yes. So I gave you a very easy one.
Oh dear. Thank
Yes.
you. I appreciate
Him and
that.
Skeet are like so easy. Because at that time they literally did other things with Nev Campbell and Sarah Michelle Gellar and
Yeah.
and I think Skeet also did a movie with Jamie Kennedy. So like very, very easy to connect the two of them.
Yeah.
He was in
For some reason, I'm trying to remember. I forget other Skeet Ulrich movies now.
he was in The Craft with Nev Campbell. Done.
He was in The Craft. He was in The Craft.
Yes.
He was in lovely. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Jenny. I would like Mikey Madison,
Okay.
who plays
Amber.
Amber in Scream
Yes.
5, who gets burned alive,
Okay.
and to get to any Scream movie from her.
Okay. Well, the only other thing I can think of her in is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she also got burnt to a crisp. So Mikey Madison was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with so many people.
Oh yes, a good fair few people.
Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, let's see. Oh, I can get to him. How do I get to him? Okay. Leonardo DiCaprio was in The Quick and the Dead
Oh.
with Gene Hackman,
Oh.
who was in Heartbreakers with Sigourney Weaver, who was in Aliens with Lance Henriksen, who was in Scream 3.
Wow. Wow. Fair enough. Yeah, the knowledge is just deep. It's impressive that I just don't have the level.
That was exciting.
The level of speed of thought, of knowledge. I can talk about movies. I can voice my opinions in some sort of reasonable way and contextualize things. But pure trivia knowledge like this is just not in my wheelhouse at all anymore. It might have been at one time.
At one point.
It might have been. Okay, go ahead. Give me a second one.
Okay, well, I'll give you her partner in crime, Jack Quaid.
Oh. Am I allowed to use television?
You are.
Oh.
Which then I will tell you. I will tell you how I would have gone about getting to Jack Quaid if you.
Well, Jack Quaid, I feel like he's also been in the Hunger Games. Was he also in the Hunger Games?
He was in the Hunger Games.
So, oh dear. The Hunger Games. Who else was in the Hunger Games? Quite a lot of people were in the Hunger Games, but who was in the Hunger Games was somebody from a Scream movie that I would instantly know was in a Scream movie. The Hunger Games with Don't say Jennifer Lawrence. Say someone more useful. Stanley Tucci. He's more useful.
Okay.
He's more useful in this sort of realm, isn't he? Stanley Tucci. You can go, God, other Stanley Tucci movies. The only one that comes to mind is Easy A, which I feel like is a half useful movie for having
if you're
Lisa
using
Kudrow
TV.
in it and then Courtney Cox in Friends and then Scream. Please, can I have that?
I'll give it to you. I'll give it
Yes.
to you. Good job. Good job. I'm proud of you. That would be a tough one for you. All right.
Yes.
Lay it on me.
Oh, okay. Jeannine, your last one. Laurie Metcalf to any Scream movie.
Okay. The only movie I can think of off the top of my head, I mean, unless I could go to TV, but I mean, she was in Lady Bird, was she not? Wasn't she the mom?
Yes,
in Lady
she
Bird?
was. She was. Where are you? Where are we going from Lady Bird?
Okay. Laurie Metcalf was in Lady Bird with Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet. He was, yes, he was. Ooh,
Who was
I feel
in?
like we could possibly get to.
Who was in Dune? With
a useful movie.
With a lot of people in Dune.
Awful
with
lot
Oscar
of people.
Isaac. It was in Dune with Oscar Isaac. Who was in The Force Awakens with Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Who was in The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
Who was in Batman Forever with Jim Carrey, who was in Ace Ventura with Courtney Cox, who was
Brilliant.
in all of the Scream movies.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right.
Well done. Well done.
Your last one.
Yes.
Is Laurie Metcalf's partner in crime, Mr. Timothy Oliphant.
Am I allowed to use television?
I guess.
Because I can do it in one.
What? No, that's not fair. No, that is not
fair.
No,
one.
that is,
I can do it in one.
That is not fair.
I can do it in one.
Yeah,
Morgan has it in one because this was a great show got unfairly cancelled on Netflix without ever finishing anything because Timothy Oliphant was in Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore, who's lovely Casey Becker in Scream.
Well, if you had any sense of creativity and could have done
I have not.
With movies, I would have gone for Timothy Oliphant was in Live Free or Die Hard.
Oh yes, because I've seen Live Free or Die Hard and knew he was in that.
He was the villain in that Die Hard movie with Justin Long, which is a quick one right there. He was in it with Justin Long, who was in Go the Distance or She's Just Not That Into You with Drew Barrymore. So
all comes round to Drew.
Yes.
All comes round to Drew. Yes, I'm quite pleased with myself. I know you
did a
gave
good
me easy
job.
ones, but I'm quite pleased.
And I let
myself.
you use TV. But
thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that, Jeannine. Fun show today, as ever, on Monday Madness. Of course, it is not the only show we have on this podcast feed or on this YouTube channel if you are watching this show today. Is it, Jeannine?
No, of course, we have our show Morgan Hasn't Seen Every Wednesday, where I force you to watch things you haven't seen. We are going into the month of love coming up, so we have some really fun February shows planned for that. But we
certainly do.
Closing out this week. Yes, we do have some fun things coming up. We are closing out our big 200th episode So that's going to be fun discussion, talking
Yes.
about our number one favorite series we've covered on Morgan Hasn't Seen. So I've been really loving us kind of taking a look back at the show. So yeah, come hang out with us for our big 200th episode of Morgan Hasn't Seen this Wednesday.
Which is
And then
very,
every
very
Friday
exciting.
it is. And every Friday we have It's a Wonderful Podcast where we give love to classic films. So we've been talking randomly, so a newspaper, newspaper dramas, noirs, comedies, with very deplorable
newspaper movies.
Newspaper man movies. So yeah.
It
I don't know
works.
how
It's
we got
good.
on this. I don't know how we got on that genre of film, but it's been really interesting.
We got on that genre of film because we really liked Ace in the Hole that
Yeah.
much that we started the year with, and just thought, oh, let's do another like newspapery type movie. And we've just carried it on for the entire month of January. But yes, it's a big week on It's a Wonderful Podcast this week with episode 200 of Morgan Hasn't Seen coming out, and it's very celebratory. It's looking back at
200,
what is by far and away the best series in Morgan Hasn't Seen's history. But of course, we do have the main show as well. As you said, this week we're talking Fritz Lang's While the City Sleeps, 1956. Before getting into a little fun series and a milestone episode of its own in February for the main show, actually, for It's a Wonderful Podcast. So a hell of a lot of fun stuff coming up on all the shows, and of course on this show as well. On Monday, Madness. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have you covered on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed on Anchor, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, and everywhere else. As I have said before, subscribe, ding the notification bell on this YouTube channel if you are watching today's episode, and for all the fun stuff we have on here as well, the reviews, Jeannine's Scream videos that are coming thick and fast and will continue to before the release of Scream 6, Morgan's movie collection. I show off the Blu-rays and fun things I buy to fill up my movie shelves, and other fun stuff as well. That we have here, plenty more new things coming to this channel and constant content for you all to enjoy. If you would like to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, there are links in the description to that. It has also been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. All episode long links in the description to those things. We can't do what we do without the wonderful support of our patrons. We love them dearly. If you would like to join them, patreon.com/itsawonderful1. Find the tier that's right for you, or just find us on social media on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. I am on Twitter at the Purple Don with a 3 instead of the E in the because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram at the Purple Don, and perhaps it might be worthwhile soon to even follow me on TikTok, which is also at the Purple Don, as you might expect. But there might not be anything on there now, but there may be very soon.
Do it. Follow him
very soon. And I know virtually nothing about TikTok. I'm an old man when it comes to that kind of thing, so enjoy. And
if I can do it, you can do it.
Just say that. Jeannine, all your crazy stuff is where?
You can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, you can find that at our Teespring shop. The link is in the description below, or it's been scrolling by if you're watching on the YouTubes. Just search It's Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com to get some awesome, fun merch. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, there we go. I do think there's only one thing left to do, Jeannine. I'm not sure if you want to do some sort of impression. I would say either try and do some sort of grungy Pedro Pascal impression, or like Ghostface in his little walkie-talkie voice
I'm
modulators.
not I can't do a very good Roger L. Jackson, but I can
Yeah.
try.
Try for us, Jeannine.
3, 2, 1.
Not bad.
terrible.
It's
It's
not
terrible.
bad. I would be terrified. Bye.
Bye.